Hello everybody, good morning. Demon Red Mist here. Yes, for anyone that watches this live, I know, shock. It's 9:15 in the morning and I'm awake. To be fair, I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. Well, awake since 3 o'clock this morning. I've been up for about an hour. Um, okay, I know for the Dynamic GT League drivers, I didn't do a hot lap video for race 2. At San Quabi. To be honest, I didn't have the time to do any practice, so I didn't have time to do a video. I haven't really got a lot of time to do practice for this race either, but I've got a little bit of time this morning, so that's why I'm going to do this. So I'm not necessarily going to show a hot lap, but I'm going to try and point out a few things around the Fuji circuit that we're going to be using for race 3. Or I say we're going to be using, we are going to be racing at. I'm not a DGT League admin. But anyway, right, before I do go into the lobby though, I'm just going to quickly show the lobby settings for anyone that wants them at any point. I will suggest though that next time you're in a practice lobby with GP, or actually the race lobby on the day, you can save the lobby settings. If you need to know how to do that, ask me on Facebook, guys. But yeah, I'm just going to show the settings here. I'm not going to speak through all of the settings, so if you do want the settings you can have a look at this and screenshot it. The only thing I will mention is the bit that I know Drew has been struggling with is this part, the balance of performance. You have to make sure you turn that on, otherwise your lap times won't be relevant. Tyres are racing hards to racing super softs, and that's about it. So yeah, there's your settings. Well, I say you can screenshot this if you need it. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing at the Fuji circuit is initially on the first lap out I'm going to show some braking points and try and explain a few things about this car around this track. I have done a few laps a couple of days ago, but Fuji's a circuit that I know quite well. I have raced on it on and off for a number of years. This car was quite interesting around this track when I drove it the other day. The setup I used at San Croix didn't quite work around this track. Now, if it does sound like I'm shouting at any point, it's just because I can't hear myself too well. So apologies for that. Now, before I do go out to the track, some people might not want me to do this, but I am going to just quickly show the setup that I'm running at the moment. Like I say, I did a little bit of work on setup a couple of days ago. I don't think it's finished, but I have done a pretty decent lap time. Excuse me. Yeah, pretty decent lap time on this setup. So feel free to screenshot this if you need to. So yeah, done a pretty decent lap time. However, I think it still needs a bit of work because I couldn't replicate the lap. But that is something that I do want to mention about this car around this track. Okay, while I've got the track map in the in the middle of the screen at the moment, it's a shame you can't see my finger, so I could show you where I'm pointing to at the track map. There are two major braking points on this particular track. Turn 1, which is at the top right corner of the track map. Very, very important to not brake too late there. Hopefully I'm going to be able to show your sort of the last point you can brake, really. Braking after that, you're not making the corner properly, and if your car's around, you're crashing. The second one is at the very bottom of the track map, the tight hairpin into the chicane. The braking point for that one is also very, very important because of the nature of those corners. The thing is though, around this track every braking zone is important because it's such a tricky circuit. And the temptation for a lot of people will be to go very fast at the wrong points. So hopefully one of the things I'll be able to show today is kind of how I'm approaching the track and how it's benefiting me. Okay, so on this out lap I'm going to try and show a couple of braking points, and wow, that car's loud, and I'm going to try and explain a few things about some of the other corners. Right, I'm actually going to just spin around and go the wrong way for a moment. Now this is obviously quite a long straight. Now your maximum speed is going to be dictated by a couple of things. One is going to be how you exit the final corner. Another one is going to be how your gear ratios are set up. Now on approach to the corner, it's not always easy to see the brake marker boards at this particular corner because they are quite high up on the left hand side of the fence. But I'm just going to quickly stop here because what I decided to do was ignore the brake marker boards and look for something else completely. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. As I'm looking at the corner here, if we look at the white line that's next to the car on the left hand side of the track and we just follow that white line all the way along, you'll see there's an orange marker on the edge of the wall, but on the edge of the metal barrier, but sort of near that, but actually still with the white line. You can see the white line comes along and then turns and heads towards the corner. The track narrows a little bit. Well, that point of the line changing direction is your final point that you can brake for the corner. Now if you have one car in front of you, he brakes there, you have to brake earlier. If you've got two cars in front of you, he brakes there, the second brakes a bit earlier, and if you try and brake at that point of the white lines, you're hitting both cars. So you have to take into consideration that if there's cars in front of you, you are going to have to brake progressively earlier and earlier and earlier, depending on how many cars are in front of you. So yeah, that's the braking point. Now there are a couple of markers to remind you that you're coming up to it, which you can use, like the end of the pit wall on the right. Okay, that's ending, we're braking soon. Or the red markings on the right hand side. Okay, that's there, we're braking soon. Or this orange marker on the wall, that's there, we're braking soon. Or this service road, oh, the service road's there, right, we're braking soon, and then hit the brakes. So there's plenty of things that are sort of showing in your face of, right, we've got to get ready to brake, and the braking point is literally here, and this is pretty much where the white lines join. If you brake at this point, you can make this corner. If you brake after this point, you can kind of make the corner, but you're going to go deep, and if you go deep and you've got cars in front of you, you're smacking them. So it's better to brake that a little bit earlier and get it into this corner. And now admittedly, on the laps I've done, braking at that point, I am still fully on the brakes all the way up to about here. That is how on the edge that braking point is. So you can't brake after that, because if you do, you're going off the track. So there we go. Okay, turn one. I actually think it's a lovely little corner. It's great for possibilities of overtaking. Okay, this isn't really a corner, so I'm not calling this turn 2. So approaching turn 3, this is a little bit of an awkward one, really. You are going to kind of have to look at the brake marker boards. Me personally, I'm using, for me it's all about sound, my actual braking point. It's the point I am in a certain gear that dictates where I brake. So I'm not visually looking at it, but what I can say is, it's not easy to see, but just in front of me there is sort of a slight rubber mark on the road. There's a slight darker patch. It's not easy to see, but it is next to the 100 meter marker board. And what I will say is that I'm probably braking around about here. You can just sort of see a few black marks here. So I am braking about here, but I'm not braking really heavy. If you go further and brake heavy, or brake at that point and brake heavy, you're going too slow for the corner. What I'm focusing on is braking at that point a little bit and getting the car to the right speed so that I can go as fast as possible through this corner in potentially 4th gear, right? Absolutely flat out. That's the aim. And hopefully you'll see that the brake usage is not big at that corner. This corner is probably one of the biggest time gainers or lunars around this track, for a number of reasons. You get this corner wrong, you're going to kill your front left tyre and your stints aren't going to last. Also, when you're going around this corner, guys, if you are having to brake around this corner a little later on, you're going too fast on the way in. So you go in quick, then you're having to slow down to make the second apex. Don't do it that way. You can actually just balance your speed all the way around this corner, feathering the throttle, not using the brake at all, so that by the second apex you are full throttle around that corner. So take a more cautious approach on the way in. So don't force it in rapidly, because if you do, you're going to end up understeer and running wide, because the aim is that around about here with these tyre markings, you're still going to be able to turn in more and absolutely floor it all the way through this corner, rather than having to slow down to make this corner. Okay, now into one of the first really buggy corners. Do not brake late for this corner. If you do, you're going to end up going so slow, you're either going to get hit or overtaken. Brake early and brake hard. Right, I'm going to guess I'm braking around about here. Again, I'm doing this braking point on sound, reference to my gears and my speed. So I will have to try and pick that up on my laps. I'm sorry I can't be more direct, but that's just the way that I drive some corners and some tracks. So I'm going to say around about here, I brake hard to make this corner, and you'll see that I don't accelerate once I've hit the brakes, or at least I shouldn't be accelerating again until I know that I can turn in and drive through this corner. Now I'm taking this corner in third gear as the optimal speed. Don't push your luck around that corner. All you will do is lose time and tyre wear. Okay, flat out kink coming up, easy, don't need any guidance on that. But now we come up to the second big braking zone of this particular track. Now what I'm going to say here is, if you brake at or after this bridge, you're not making the corner, so don't even bother. And just like turn one, if you have cars in front of you, you will have to brake a little bit sooner. Now I am braking around about here, so just before the bridge is going out of my screen. Now you'll be able to keep an eye on that, but again, I'm hitting the brakes and I'm hitting them hard all the way pretty much to the apex of the corner. But as I approach this corner, what I don't really want to see people doing, because it makes things awkward for you, is turning in too soon. If you start turning in around here for this corner, you're effectively making this corner really tight, and you're going to end up over here, which means now you're out of position for this corner, and now you're going to end up running wide and ending up all over this curb, and this curb's a bitch and there's a chance you're going to spin. So what I want to see people doing, really, I mean, it's something to remember as well. If you are going to attempt an overtake in this corner and you go for that inside line, you are going to have to get it really slowed down, so that you can actually physically make the turn. Right, what you're better off doing, and hopefully if people are following you, they're going to be aware of this, what you're better off doing is continuing to brake in a straighter line, and then somewhere around about this white splash of paint, it's not a splash, but strip of paint on the left of the screen just there, now you can turn in, and look, the corner is nowhere near as tight a corner, and now you can use the curb, and now look, this corner's just perfectly opened up for you, and now you can actually drive through this corner faster, and a knock-on effect, this one is a very easy corner. So how you enter that first one is massively important, so try and work on that, guys. Okay, now we're into the part of the track that most people are going to hate, to be honest, because it's so bloody awkward. Now, these next 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, you don't have to brake a lot. If you are having to brake a lot, you're braking too late. Okay, so you can brake earlier and a lot less and just get your speed down. Right, so by the time this AstroTurf ends, you want to be turning in, but you don't want to be on the throttle, or not on the throttle too much, because you want to position your car on the curb here like this, so that you can make the corner, not so that you're heading over in this direction. If you've been doing laps around here, you'll know what I'm on about. So yeah, you need to control your speed on the way in. Flat out now for this bit, and then probably the most difficult corner on the track, to be honest. It is an awkward one. It's one that you can't brake late at. Now, I thought I had a braking marker, some kind of line on the track that I use, as I'm just looking. Well, there's a slight change of coloration on the tarmac just here. You see this line right in front of me? So I guess I'm braking somewhere around about this sort of point, but I'm wanting to let the car run out as wide as possible and get it slowed down nice and early, turning in at the end of the AstroTurf on the right, so that I can get my car into this position here. This then opens up the exit of the corner. There will be a lot of people running wide on this corner, either A, because you're taking too much speed into it, or B, you're turning in too soon, which means you're running out wide. Okay, and then into the final corner. This is an interesting one. People are going to go for dive bombs up the inside. It's just the nature of the corner and the way people drive sometimes. It is by no means the fastest way around this corner. Taking a wider line around this corner is better. And again, you don't have to brake hard. You only have to brake a little bit so that you can get your speed down enough so that between this white patch of paint on the left and the end of the AstroTurf stroke curb, somewhere in between here, you can start turning in. Now, let's just back up a tiny little bit. Okay, we can't see the curb, but it never moves. So we know it's there, so as long as we've got our car into this kind of position, we know we can turn in and the curb's over there. We don't need to be able to see it. Okay, now again for me, this is a third gear corner and it's a very quick corner, and by taking this line, this now is not a tight corner, but if you're on the inside, it is a very tight corner. So I can come round here now in third gear on the power and absolutely push it as hard as I can through the corner, giving me maximum speed down the start finish straight. Okay, so there's a quick verbal guide and sort of pointers about the track. I am now going to try and do some laps, and holy cow, I think my tyres are cold. I didn't know the tyres actually got cold on this, but there we go. Right, so as we're approaching towards turn one, remember we're looking for that white line where it makes that little change of direction. It's not easy to see it when you're there, but it is pretty easy to see on approach. But if you've got loads of cars around you, that's why you need those other markers. Okay, we can see it in the distance coming up now, and on the brakes hard, all the way into the apex of the corner, and then hard on the throttle. You'll see I didn't touch the throttle from the point I hit the brakes to when I came out of the corner. Okay, about 100 meters, not heavy braking because I just want to control the speed and let the car flow through the corner. Don't go in too fast here. I'm going to lift off a little bit because I just want to control the speed so that I can be flooring it on the exit. And now hard on the brakes. I'm only going to go down to third gear, but I'm going to get it tucked in all over the curb, a little wobbly on the exit, but I'm aggressive on the throttle because of the way I went into the corner. Okay, another hard braking point. Remember, keep an eye on, if you can, I'm not accelerating again on the brakes. Not accelerating again until I know I'm able to. Now I am doing a little bit of a lift off there, but ideally you won't need to be able to. Gently on the brakes, let the car slow down, get it turned in, and then you can drive faster out of the corner. Don't push it here. Again, gentle on the brakes. I've missed my turn-in point, but I'm still making the corner, not running wide. Okay, get out to the left. Gentle on the brakes, a bit too late on the brakes off for me there, but I'm aggressive on the throttle, and I was in second gear. So you'll see there that I was pushing a little bit too hard, so I didn't quite make those last two corners properly. All right, let's see if we can do it a bit better on this occasion. Okay, so approaching the white line as before, and again braking without accelerating. Ran a little wider than I wanted to, but I can cope with that. Very gentle braking here. It's just to get the speed down enough to attack that curb. May have taken a bit too much. Okay, going in a little too hard. I'm going to let the car balance itself so that I can get it turned in. There we are, beautiful. And then hard on the brakes. It's about 100 meters-ish, 100 meters to 75 meters for that left-hander. Okay, again, I'm going to be hard on the brakes here all the way to the corner. Lift off a little bit, really pushing the boundaries. Gentle on the brakes again, just let the car slow itself down. Give it time to slow down for you. It braked a little earlier, much better line into the corner, which means I can be much more aggressive on the exit. Gentle on the brakes before the white line. I've gone down to second gear again, I shouldn't have done, but I'm able to push the car around the corner. Okay, for this one, I am going to brake a little later. I'm going to brake after the point I've mentioned to show what happens. So a few meters, braking later, and look how many meters I am away from the apex of the corner. That's the effect of braking a moment too late. Okay. But yeah, again, this corner, I mean, you could brake later, you could brake about here and brake hard, but because you're braking hard, you'll end up with a lower minimum speed at the apex of the corner than by just braking a little gentler earlier on. And again, here, I'll show it on the next lap what happens if you go in too fast. You'll see I had no risk of running off to the left at any side, any point, and I know that my speed was over 100 miles an hour for majority of the time through those corners. That's good enough. If you go in at 115, but at some point you're hitting 85, it's not a benefit, is it? Okay. All right, see if we can get this last corner done properly with third gear. Now, if you brake at the points that I mentioned and you feel like it's too soon, don't brake later. Just come off the brakes earlier. Okay, I've got a better braking marker for this corner. I'll mention it on the next lap if I remember right. Yeah, third gear, tucked in, all over the apex, on full throttle already, and letting the car speed up. Easy. It's a very easy corner unless you go too aggressive into it. Okay, so this lap I'll try and show the long right hander what happens if you go too fast in. And when I say you can be aggressive on the exit of a corner, what I mean is by getting the entry right, you can go full throttle much sooner. Drop it down to third if you need to here, or double shifted. Right, okay, we're going to go fast in, understeering, I braked, I'm not going to make it. So there's no point going in too quick in that corner. Okay, for this corner I did notice as well, I am braking about here, it's about 85 meters ish. Don't brake late for this corner, guys, you'll just end up causing crashes. Okay, the penultimate corner, a better sort of brake marker for people that may want it. Now, some of the things that I've mentioned over the years, for anyone that's been following me for a long time about racetracks, is, to be honest, yes, they have brake marker boards, but they also tend to have a lot of other things that tell you when you should be braking, turning, doing all these kind of things. A little bit like, okay, that white block of paint, what's that all about? Why is that there? There could be a perfectly valid reason for it, but it just happens to be in about the right sort of point to say, you need to be turning in for this corner now. So keep an eye out for those kind of things. Now for the corner that we're approaching, the left-hander in a moment, what I spotted was one of the things that I've used quite often, which is the end of a curb. So this curb on the left-hand side of me now, as you're coming around this corner, as the end of the curb is about to go out your screen, so here, this is your braking point. If you use this as your braking point, you can make this corner so easy every time. Now, if you brake at this point and you feel you're going too slow, brake less, Don't brake later. As I think it was Steve F1 mentioned, if you're already fully on the brakes, you can't slow down no more. But if you brake a little bit earlier and less, you can still go full brakes. And it is a very good saying, to be honest. I liked it. I applaud Steve F1 with that one. And Dave the Harp said he does it as well. So Steve the Harp, well done. So yeah, so there we go. Right, I'm just going to jump back to the pits and get a fresh set of tyres on. I mean, I ain't going to be on this for ages anyway. I've got a few things to do today. And Steve, no, I don't mean play Red Dead Redemption. Not till later anyway. Okay, now the other point, for anyone that may still be watching this at this point now, there was something I was meant to mention earlier at the start of this video which I completely forgot to mention. So I'll mention it now. So for anyone that's already buggered off, tough shit. For anyone that stayed, well done, you get an extra bonus bit of information. I have found that with this track, in this car, the harder you push to improve your lap time, the slower you will go. Doesn't make much sense to many people, I know. Now I'm not saying you should drive like an old fuddy-duddy. Good luck American Drew and Jason understanding that terminology, but there you go. But yeah, I mean, I did a pretty decent lap time the other day, and every time I pushed to try and match it or beat it, I went considerably slower. So if you've been struggling with lap times and you're pushing hard and you're trying harder, that might be why you're not going quicker or you're not gaining time. There's nothing wrong with backing off a little bit. One of the old sayings I used to say was, if you're capable of doing, let's say for example, a 1:39 lap time around here, and no, I haven't done one of them yet, a 1:39 lap time around here, well done. But if you can only do one of those in 10 laps and the other 10 laps are in the 1:45s, then the 1:39 is pointless. However, if you can back off a bit and consistently do 1:40s, then that is overall quicker in those 10 laps. Something to think about. Right, okay. Now, like I said, I'm not going to be doing many more laps here, so I'm not going to be going for sort of flat out hot lap. I'm going to be trying to go as quick as I can, but it's not like I'm going to be focusing on trying to beat my PB. And I can say that 41.8 is not my PB. And for anyone that knows this game and these cars, I am on the soft compound tyre. I haven't used the super softs around here yet. I'm probably not going to use them in the race, so I don't see the point. A track like this, it's going to absolutely destroy the super softs. It's quite a long lap, and there's 2 or 3 corners that are going to kill the front left tyre. And in a way, it's a shame that you can't adjust individual wheel cambers on this game, because if you could, it would be a good way of having a big effect on the amount of tyre wear you could get from front left to front right, for example. And one thing I will say is, for anyone that does watch this, I mean, feel free to look back and just keep an eye on and have a look at what I am doing with the brake pedal. For that, it's just next to the speedo on the left hand side, if you don't know where it is. But yeah, so keep an eye on how much I'm using that through some of the slow or medium speed corners. Bit offline there. Might need a bigger lift. So that little offline I had on the early part of that fast right-hander is what caused me to be further left and also caused me to be further right there. Bit wider than I wanted to be, but I can still get on the throttle early. I think I may have lost a bit of time in that last corner though. Oh, not bad, 3/10 gain. I broke about a metre later than the previous lap and had to wait a little bit longer before I could get on the power, and that's shown by the slight time loss. Right, I'm compromising the exit a little bit there to be slightly further away from the right of the track, but I've gone too quick, so I'm going to have to lift off for longer. That was lower than 100 mile an hour. And the thing is as well, as the tyres start to wear, your braking zones are potentially going to become a little bit longer, or you may have to go down an extra gear for corners. That's a better line. I want to be on that curb like that, much quicker through that corner. So although I've lost 0.6 of a second in that middle sector, most of my lap was focused on that long right-hander and that final corner to improve the lines through them. I improved the line through the final corner, but not the long right-hander. Nice tight line there. A little too aggressive on the throttle. Got on the throttle very early though because of the nice line into the corner. Now I'm going to drop it down to third gear just to see if I can pull it a little further around the corner. Car's wanting to understeer now with the slightly worn tyres, but again I didn't use the brake there, just lifted off. I'll have to go down an extra gear or brake too late. And this is the thing as well, as soon as you start realising, shit, broke too late, you know that you have to do something for the corner, and you can get quicker and quicker at doing that and minimise any time loss. Do not want to be up there. It does go to show though, I mean the tyres, I must admit I do think the tyres are perhaps a little too fragile in the settings for the DGT League, but it makes it interesting. If you want to risk the super softs, go for it. It does make it a little bit interesting, that's for sure, but it does mean that there can be a lot of time loss as the tyres start to wear. braked a lot more for that corner, and okay, make the corner nice and easy with a minimum corner speed. Even though I didn't see it, I could just tell it was so much slower. I'd increasingly been braking later for this corner, so I braked at the right point again. Just got on the power way too soon, or too much too soon. It is getting to the point now with the tyres as well where I'm having to consider doing things slightly differently because of the wear. It's not braking as good as it did with the early lap. It's not turning as well as it did. It's to be expected. And this is one of the advantages of braking a little earlier and braking less. Allows you to still brake that a little bit earlier, but brake a little bit more if you need to when the tyres are wearing. So there's a margin for you to use as you need to. I'm getting further and further away from that apex, which ideally means I need to brake a little bit earlier. You see how much time loss we've got from the tyre wear. So one of the things that I try and do in this kind of situation is when the tyres are wearing and obviously the car's a little more difficult to drive, is I'm not focusing on lap time necessarily. I'm keeping an eye on what the lap times are, but my main focus is actually, okay, what do I need to do to stay on the racing line and still hit the apexes of the corners, and then the lap times you're doing are more relevant. Okay, braked a little bit earlier. That means I can get nicely into the apex of the corner. I mean, I may be a little too slow on the way in, but I'm testing that braking point of earlier than normal. Taking a wider line. I mean, I don't like to be all the way over to the right hand side too early. I only want to be over to the right at this point now. So yeah, so as I'm driving around, my only aim now, after the initial lap with decent tyres, is what do I need to do to keep it on the track, on the racing line? Do I need to brake a metre earlier? Do I need to go down an additional gear? Do I need to turn in any earlier? Do I need to turn more without causing it to understeer? All those kind of things. And then, like I said, the lap times become relevant because you work out, right, okay, I did what I had to keep it going. Now what were those lap times? How much time did I lose? Would I have benefited from pitting and putting on a fresher set of tyres over the course of a race and perhaps doing an extra pit stop? All those kind of things. I think now the front's really struggling, really struggling. And we can see the kind of time loss that I've had here, given the nature of wear on the tyres. It's to be expected. And like I say, I mean, the car's not perfectly set up, but I'm probably not going to do a lot more with it, if anything. Depends on how much practice time I'll get. I'm not expecting the car to handle this next right-hander very well, given the amount of wear on that front left tyre. Yeah, it's not wanting to go. I'm having to use the brakes on that occasion just to get the speed down enough to keep it going around the corner. It'll be a little bit better on the left-handers because the right front's in better condition. Yeah, really struggling there. So yeah, that front left is pretty much absolutely knackered. I won't be surprised if this is up in the 146s on this lap. No, 44, wasn't it? 45? 45. But yeah, I mean, in all fairness, I would have pitted a few laps ago if I was in a race on this particular set of tyres. But hopefully, though, throughout the course of those laps, I've been able to show you that even with knackered tyres, I'm still been able to make the corners, excuse me, simply by braking that little bit earlier, or braking at my normal points and braking a little bit more than when the tyres are in good condition. It's a big benefit of doing the braking a little bit earlier and braking less. You have that freedom to brake at the same point but brake a little bit more as your tyres wear, or brake just a little bit earlier but brake the same amount. So it gives you freedom, and I was able to keep the car pretty much on the road, on the apexes, but as you can see, I've lost time doing it, but that's the nature of the beast. Anyway, I think that might be me done. I suppose I should go and have a look at what car I will be gifted for that if I've done 25 miles. Yes, 26 miles, yes I have. I do know that someone has been... I'll quickly check those messages. Obviously, it is an unusual time of day for me to have been online. I am aware of that, but I know I said I was going to do a bit of practice last night and try and video it. I did do a bit of practice, but I didn't feel up to videoing it. That's why I've sort of recorded this now. So, bear with me a second. Would help if I actually get onto my video. Ray, how are you wide awake? Never mind trying to race. I've been wide awake since 3 o'clock this morning, mate. Well, I've been awake since 3 o'clock this morning, wide awake for about the last 3 hours. And to be honest, I've got half a Chinese left over from last night that I'm contemplating whether it's right or wrong to have as breakfast. So yeah. And that's the situation I'm in today. Probably means I'm going to be knackered tonight, but there we go. So yeah, I probably won't be doing any practice on GT tonight, unfortunately. And I don't think I'm going to get on tomorrow night as well. But yeah, I mean, hopefully though, people, any of the DGT League drivers that may have been struggling around this track, may have got a few tips and a few pointers there at how to improve around that particular track. Don't do it. To be honest, mate, I'll probably be better with the Chinese for breakfast rather than getting the runs from it, but there we go. Right, I'm pretty sure I got the shits the other day from chocolate cake, but that's another story for another time. Right, let's see what car we're getting here. I'm just contemplating whether I do any more driving or whether I just crack on with the stuff I need to do today. Let's see, that's going to give me the Corvette Stingray, innit? Oh no. Group 4 Alpha, is it? Or Group 3 Alpha? Group 3 Alpha. Not a bad car, but I've already got a couple of them. Okay, doke, Ray. Have a good one, and I shall see you later. Right. You know, I think I am going to bring this video to an end. I have got a few things I need to go and do today. If I end up with time to come on later and do some more practice, I might record it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that without being feeling recently. Anyway, hope this video does help, and for anyone that's not seen these videos before, feel free to check out Dynamic GT League on YouTube to watch the footage of their races that they've been hosting, or check out Dynamic GT League on Facebook. Also, don't be afraid of checking out I'll Tell You What TV on YouTube, the unofficial F1 podcast, although I haven't done a podcast recently since the last Formula E race. There is the possibility that we might be doing something tonight, but you'll have to wait and see. It all depends on how I feel later. So yeah, but go and check that out anyway. I think the podcasts are really good because I'm on them, and there's some funny bits as well. Anyway, have a good one, folks. Enjoy your Tuesday, and I'll see you again soon.